Right now, in your home, there is something sitting in a place it should not be. You did not put it there with bad intention. You put it there the way most people put things places, out of habit, out of convenience, out of the simple absence of any reason not to. And because nothing dramatic happened the day you placed it there, and nothing visibly wrong has happened since, you have never thought twice about it. But I want to tell you something that certain families have known for a very long time. The arrangement of your home, specifically what you place in the room where you gather, where you rest, where your household makes its collective decisions about how to live, that arrangement is not neutral. It is not decoration. It is a daily broadcast, a signal running constantly, shaping the emotional and energetic frequency of everyone who lives inside it. And what I am going to show you today is the specific object, the one that appears in more homes than almost any other, placed without awareness in the most prominent position in the living room, that the ancient wisdom tradition of the family I was raised in identifies as one of the primary disruptors of financial peace, relational clarity, and the quality of thinking that determines the quality of a life. You are going to recognize this object immediately when I name it. And when I name it, some part of you is going to argue. It is going to say, that is too simple. That cannot be what is affecting my financial life. And I want to ask you, before that argument begins, to stay with me through the full teaching, because the argument your mind is preparing is not coming from your wisdom. It is coming from the part of you that has lived with this object for so long that it has become invisible, the way the smell of your own home is invisible to you, the way the background noise of a city becomes inaudible to people who have lived in it for years. The first step in any genuine change is the restoration of vision, and that is what today is about. My name is Rabbi Naomi. I have spent 33 years inside the Kabbalistic and Talmudic wisdom traditions, living inside a lineage of transmission that was given to me directly, teacher to student, the way it has been passed for centuries. I grew up in a home where the arrangement of physical space was treated as a matter of serious spiritual and practical consequence. Not superstition, not aesthetics, precision. The families who have preserved this teaching across generations understand something that modern neuroscience is only now catching up to in its language, though not in its substance. The environment you inhabit is not a passive backdrop to your life. It actively shapes the quality of your attention, the tone of your emotions, the default posture of your nervous system, and through all of those things, the quality of every decision and every relationship that unfolds inside it. You are not separate from your space. You are in constant, ongoing, mostly unconscious conversation with it. Before I go further, stay until the very end. The piece I give you near the close, the warning about what happens after you make this change, is the piece most people skip, and it is the piece that determines whether the shift holds. So stay. And before we go one step further, I want you to type the words, "My home is my frequency," in the comments right now. Write it before you continue. In this tradition, Naming the truth of something before you fully understand it is not presumption. It is the act of preparing the ground. My home is my frequency. Write it in the comments now. The object is the television, specifically the television placed as the central, primary focal point of the living room, the thing everything else in the room is arranged to face, the thing that, when you walk into the room, commands the most prominent wall, the most direct sightline from every seat, the position of highest visual authority in the space where your household gathers. I am not telling you that owning a television is the problem. I am telling you something far more specific than that, and I need you to hear the precision of it before you decide you already know what I am saying. In the Kabbalistic tradition, the concept of makom, which translates as place or space, carries a weight that has no real equivalent in modern Western thinking. Makom is not just location, it is the quality of presence that a space holds and projects. The ancient teachers understood that every object placed in a space contributes to the makom of that space, to its energetic, emotional, and spiritual character, and that the object given the position of highest prominence contributes disproportionately. The center of the wall, the thing everything faces. That position in the ancient teaching belongs to what the family values most. What the family places there, they are declaring, not in words, not consciously, but in the daily, repeated, inarguable language of physical arrangement. This is what we face. This is what we orient toward. This is the center of our collective life, and what most modern households have placed in that position of highest prominence is a screen that, for the majority of its operational hours, delivers a continuous stream of manufactured urgency, engineered anxiety, financial comparison, and the carefully calibrated spectacle of other people's lives, designed to make the viewer feel that what they have is insufficient, and what they need is whatever is being advertised between the scenes. I am not making a moral argument about television. I am making a structural one. The content that flows most frequently through the dominant screen in most living rooms is content that is, at its core, in the business of producing dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction, the specific, chronic, low-grade dissatisfaction of a household that has unconsciously declared this is what we face, is one of the most reliably documented suppressors of financial creativity, relational warmth, and the quality of thinking that produces good decisions. This is not a coincidence, and it is not subtle. I want to tell you about a family I worked with. I will call them the Mizrahi family, a name that belongs to none of them. A couple in their late 30s, 2 children, a home they had worked hard to build in a neighborhood they had chosen carefully. They came to me not in financial crisis, but in what I would describe as financial stagnation. That particular frustration of a household that is doing everything correctly, by every measure that the conventional wisdom offers, and still not moving forward. They were disciplined. They were not extravagant. They had a budget they mostly kept and goals they mostly pursued. Neither of them was passive or careless. But the energy of the home, as the wife described it in our first session, felt like running on a treadmill. Motion without distance, effort without arrival. conversations that returned to the same point they started from. The husband said something I have heard in variations from many people who live in this particular pattern. We talk about money constantly in our house, but we never get anywhere in the conversation. We circle, we plan and we replan, and we worry and we re-worry, and at the end of the evening, we are in approximately the same place we were when we sat down to talk about it. I asked them to describe their living room to me. I gave them no context for why I was asking. The wife described a room organized entirely around a large screen on the main wall. Every seat in the room faced it. The coffee table had been positioned for optimal viewing. A chair had been moved from its original location, specifically to improve the sightline. The screen was on, she said, for most of the evening, not always watched intentionally, not always with anyone's full attention, but running, present, filling the room with sound and motion and content from the moment the family arrived home until the moment they went to sleep. It was the first thing that came on when they entered the room and the last thing that went off before they went to bed. I gave them one instruction only. Move the television from the central position on the main wall, not out of the house, not into storage, not permanently if they did not wish it to be permanent. Simply remove it from the position of highest prominence and relocate it to a secondary wall, to a corner, to any position that required a deliberate physical turn to face rather than a default forward orientation. And in the space on the main wall where the screen had been, they were to place something chosen with full intention, something that represented what the family actually valued, a piece of art that carried meaning for them, a family photograph from a moment of genuine joy and connection, a text or a symbol from the tradition they came from. Anything, as long as it was not chosen by default, and as long as it carried real meaning specifically to them. They came back 5 weeks later. The husband spoke first. He said that within the first week, something in the texture of their evenings had changed in a way he found difficult to put into words. They talked more, not about what they had watched, not about the news or the shows or the commentary, but about things that actually mattered to them. Conversations that had been circling for months without resolution began to move. They made a financial decision in the 3rd week about a savings allocation they had been avoiding for over a year because the conversations about it always ended in the same unresolved anxiety. And they made it calmly, clearly, in about 40 minutes, and both of them followed through on it without the usual backsliding. The wife said something I want to give you exactly as she said it. I did not realize how much of our mental energy was being consumed by the room until the room stopped consuming it. Now let me give you the teaching behind the instruction with the precision it deserves. The first principle is this. In the ancient tradition, the primary wall of the main gathering room is called the Qibla Shel Bayit, the direction of the home. Not a fixed religious concept in the architectural sense, but a lived principle, the understanding that the direction a home faces internally, the thing it points its collective attention toward, determines the frequency of the household. Families who have preserved this teaching do not place the object of highest prominence on that wall by default or convenience. They choose it with full awareness of what they are saying by the choice. What faces your household when it gathers is what your household is continuously, invisibly oriented toward in its deepest psychological and spiritual posture. The second principle, proximity to agitation is not neutral. The content that flows through the dominant screen in most homes is specifically engineered, and I use the word engineered without any drama, simply as an accurate description of how this content is produced, to activate the threat response in the viewer. News that emphasizes danger, advertising that emphasizes lack, entertainment that normalizes a level of material display that most viewers cannot access. Every hour of this content, run through the nervous system of a family gathered in their living room, is an hour of mild but sustained threat activation. And a nervous system in sustained, mild threat activation does not think creatively about financial opportunity. It does not make generous, expansive decisions in relationships. It does not produce the quality of thinking that builds anything. It contracts, it defends, it circles. The Mizrahi family was not running on a treadmill because they lacked intelligence or discipline or motivation. They were running on a treadmill because the room they returned to every evening was actively maintaining them in a slightly contracted, slightly anxious, slightly dissatisfied state from which no real forward movement is possible. The third principle is about intentional replacement, and it is as important as the removal. This is where this teaching is commonly misapplied. People hear, "Move the television," and they do it, and they stand in front of an empty wall and feel the absence of the familiar thing, and within 3 weeks, the television has crept back or been replaced by something equally passive. The instruction is not removal. The instruction is replacement with intention. What you place on that wall now must be chosen. It must carry meaning that is specific to your household, not generic inspiration, not a print you bought because it matched the furniture. Something that, when you walk into the room and your eyes go to that wall, as eyes always go to the dominant wall, returns you to what actually matters to you. A text from the tradition, if that is your language. An image from a place or a moment that represents who your family is and where it is going. A symbol of the value you are choosing to face. The wall is not empty now. It is available. Fill it with intention. The fourth principle is about timing, and the tradition is specific here. Do not make this change impulsively, in a burst of inspired rearrangement. Make it on a day that you have chosen deliberately, in the morning, with your household, if possible, gathered to witness it. And when the television is moved and the new object is in place, stand together in front of it for 2 minutes in silence. Not as a performance, as an acknowledgement, as the act of saying, in the physical language of presence and attention, we see what we have chosen to face. This is what we are declaring as the center of this household. The 2 minutes of standing and seeing is not theater. It is the moment the change becomes conscious rather than merely physical. And consciousness is what makes the difference between a rearrangement and a transformation. The fifth principle is the one that holds the entire practice together over time, and it is the one most families forget within a month. The wall must be tended. What you place there must remain chosen, not just initially, but continuously. If the meaningful object fades into the background, the way everything eventually fades into the background of the familiar, return to it. Look at it with full attention at least once each day, not a glance. A genuine 30 seconds of looking at the thing you chose and remembering why you chose it. This is what the tradition calls Hazara, return, the practice of deliberately coming back to something that has begun to fade into habit. The families who maintain the energy of an intentionally arranged home do not do it through a single act of rearrangement. They do it through the discipline of continuously re-seeing what they have chosen to face. Now I need to give you the warning. Because this change will be tested, and the test comes in a form that catches almost everyone off guard. In the first week or two after you move the television, you will feel the discomfort of the absence. Not just practically, not just the inconvenience of it being in a less comfortable position, emotionally. The screen in the dominant position was serving a function that had nothing to do with entertainment. It was filling silence. It was preventing the kind of presence in a room that requires you to actually be with the people in it, actually inhabit the quiet, actually face the thoughts and the conversations and the moments of stillness that arise when the constant stream of external content is no longer available to prevent them. That discomfort is not a signal that something is wrong. It is the signal that the room is beginning to do what it is supposed to do. The discomfort is the old pattern releasing. Stay with it. Do not move the television back. Move through the discomfort. What is on the other side of it is a quality of household presence that you will recognize when you arrive there because it is something you have missed, perhaps for years, without being able to name what was missing. If you want the complete framework, all 7 objects and spatial arrangements that this tradition identifies as either supporting or suppressing financial peace and household clarity, each with the specific instruction for how to address them. It is in the resource I have placed in the description below. This is the full teaching of which today's video is one principle. 7 objects, 7 teachings, 7 precise, actionable changes that the families who have lived this tradition use to make their homes into environments that support rather than drain the financial and relational life they are building. It is there for the person who is serious. If you watched this entire teaching, that person may be you. What I want to know from you is this. Tell me in the comments. When you look at your living room right now, what is the first thing your eye goes to when you walk in the door? Just describe it. No judgment, no explanation needed. One sentence. What your eye goes to first in that room is what your home is currently declaring as its center. I want to know. I read every comment. Write it below. If this channel is consistently giving you a quality of teaching you are not finding anywhere else, not motivation, not inspiration, not the recycling of ideas you have already encountered, subscribe now. Every week goes this deep, and what is coming in the weeks ahead includes some of the most practically grounded material from this tradition that I have released in this format. Subscribe so you are here when it arrives. And if something in today's teaching opened a door in your thinking, if you are going to look at your living room differently tonight than you looked at it this morning, press the like button. It tells the platform that this kind of wisdom belongs in front of more people. Someone right now is living in a room that is quietly working against them and has no idea. Your press of that button may be the thing that changes that. Do it now. You came to this video because the title named something, a specific, physical, familiar thing. And what I hope you are leaving with is the understanding that the familiar things are often the most powerful ones, precisely because they are invisible. We stop seeing what is always there. This tradition restores the seeing. It asks you to look at your home with the eyes of someone who understands that every arrangement is a declaration, and every declaration has consequences. One object, one wall, one intentional replacement. Begin this week. Begin today if you can. May your home become a place that faces what you truly value. May what has been subtly working against you be moved with full awareness to where it can no longer reach the center. And may the space you create in its absence be filled with something that, every single time your eyes find it, returns you to who you are and where you are going. Go in peace.
Shalom.